a great honor to introduce Dr. Chris Omni. Dr. Omni is a Black Joy scholar, artist, and activist. She is a keynote speaker, award-winning entrepreneur, internationally recognized nature-inspired artist, and author. Dr. Omni is the go-to source for creative and compassionate conversations that lead to community change. Dr. Omni's research explores nature's influence on the emotional, social, physical, and spiritual well-being of Black people. By blending her 25-year background in public health with her foreground in art education, Dr. Omni's presentations provide a counter-narrative to the typical deficit lens generally applied to the Black experience. Dr. Omni's international and national honors include the 2022 semi-finalist of the 3-minute thesis, championship presented by the Conference of Southern Graduate Schools, the 2021 first place in the 3-minute thesis presented by Florida State University, the 2019 International Community Ambassador presented by I Change Nations, the 2018 American Small Business Champion presented by SCORE, the 2018 Black People Who Rock presented by New Mount Zion Missionary Baptist Church, the 2015 Minority-Owned Business of the Year presented by the Kansas Chamber of Commerce, and the 2015 Woman of Achievement and Outstanding Entrepreneur presented by Topeka Chamber of Commerce. Outside of teaching, mentoring, and winning awards, Dr. Omni can be found tending to her 80-plus potted plants, walking her 2 dogs, or passing out hugs to people who need and or want an emotional release. A single encounter with Dr. Omni will leave you feeling heard, seen, and valued. Please welcome Dr. Chris Omni.
Thank you so very much. I received that love. I know I wrote it, but to hear it, thank you. All right, so as he mentioned, my name is Dr. Chris Omni, and we have been sitting for a really, really long time. And if you have ever heard me present, you know I don't like standing behind the podium, and actually I'm doing something that I should never ever do. I'm speaking with my shoes on. I don't do that. I must always be grounded when I present. So we're going to start with me taking my shoes off, and I invite you to get grounded and remove your shoes if that's what you choose to do. The second part of my presentation is to talk to you about the framing. We are going to discuss past, present, and future for a digital humanities project that was developed while working on my dissertation here at Florida State, and so much has grown in the space of just 2 years in partnership with FSU Libraries. So the other part is the fun part, right? That since you've been sitting, I think it's time for us to do a little bit of movement. How many of you remember the childhood game Red Light, Green Light? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Will you indulge me for a moment? It is part of the presentation. Will you indulge me for a game of Red Light, Green Light? Okay, if so, please stand up. And if you've never played Red Light, Green Light, but you would like to, this is the way it works. When I look at you and I say red light, you must stop. When I turn away from you and I say green light, you may go, and you're trying to work your way towards me, okay? To make this fair, I want everybody to go right back there by that black cart, and you're gonna work your way around the wall and try to get to me. So do not cut through the tables. You did not sign a waiver, so I'm not responsible if you trip over the chairs. By you volunteering to get up, this is your agreement, right? So you're gonna try to work your way around this way coming to me. So what is your name, love? David. So single file line with David, to make it all fair. So everybody get in a single file line with David. Yes, so you're facing this direction. Yep, you're fine, but single file line with David as much as possible. If there are chairs in the way, you get to bear witness to this if you don't want to get up. Oh, yeah, okay. Thank you for pushing chairs in. That sounds good. I would love that. Indeed. Because you are actually a part of my presentation right now, just so you know. So remember, do not run into the chairs, but as I'm looking at you, a red light means stop, a green light means go. Are you ready? Okay, thank you. That's one person. All right, so remember, you're working your way to the wall, down the wall, and getting to me. Red light. Huh? Green light. Red light. 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 Yellow light. I just had to see what would happen. Green light. Hey, love. She's like, I'm getting there. So I was supposed to say red light, but you were right there. So green light. And then you got me. Green light. Keep on. Green lights. Green light. Keep, and you may go to your seat. Green lights. Green lights. Red light. Oh, ooh, you were reaching. Green light. Red light. Oh. Green light. You got me. Red light. Ah! Green light. Okay, home free. Clap it up for yourselves. In that particular game of red light, green light, how did you feel? This is an interactive presentation. How did you feel? Good. Thank you. See, if you've ever heard me speak, you know I don't speak with notes. So I'm just waiting on that answer to resonate in my spirit. Fun. I want to make sure that research is received as fun, that you can play a game and then think about how that applies to your life. So what we just did was gave a chance for everybody to win. It wasn't just a matter of red light, green light, first person wins. Then that means 1 out of 20 of you get to win the prize. When it comes to being a Black Joy scholar, artist, and activist, it is about reframing the conversation of what it means to be a scholar, because Black women, Black people, a lot of my research deals with Black women, we are scholars of self, sisterhood, service. And unfortunately, in the society that we live in, a lot of the research reports the deficit narrative of what's wrong with Black people. So in this space, I bring my background in public health, and part of that is having fun through physical activity, into the foreground of art education, because now this is about storytelling. I use narrative inquiry as one of my primary research forms. Now, the other thing that just happened is, you didn't see it, but I had a chance to see it. I saw smiles. Oh, see, now, I could stop right there. Y'all are still smiling. I saw smiles all the way around the room as you were playing this game. So to tie this back into this deficit narrative, I frame it with the statistics, which I don't like, but I'm gonna give it to you to give you a better understanding of what we're doing in the present. But for Black women, we are 42% more likely to die from cancer, 60% more likely to be diabetic, 30% more likely to die from stroke. 80% of us are overweight. 53% of us are obese. So when you were talking about cardiovascular, I'm like, this is like a perfect bridge to the conversation of health. But with my public health research, I looked at physical activity and the different barriers to physical activity to get us moving. You just played a game, but that was physical activity. It transported some of you, and maybe I'm dating myself because I'm almost out of my 40s. I can't believe that. I'll be 49 in a couple of months. I invited you to go back into my past, but some of you smiled because now I think it was part of your past of red light, green light. Kids played. Kids were physically active. Kids weren't just here on their screens. So we've lost the art of play. When it comes to research, we've lost the art of play. And when you look at the definition of research, you just break the words down. What does search mean? Anybody? What does search mean? Search, right. So the word is research. I'm going to break the two words down. What is search? To look. Yes. So if it's research, then it's to look again. And then again and again. And it doesn't matter what direction you are looking backwards or forwards. But what we do with this research is that we take it back to the basics of storytelling. Storytelling is a place where our ancestors were able to pass down knowledge, and storytelling became a way to disseminate research because we looked again about the experiences that we had as Black people in communities to share that with the next generation. As you leave here, whether you share this with somebody else or not, you just had a temporary download of fun to remember and look back at the times when life was simple. The times when you didn't have to worry about writing. How many of you are working on a grant right now? Anybody? Okay. We didn't have to worry about writing grants as kids. So there's a lot of fun, to keep on coming back to your word, there's a lot of fun that is missing from research. Not anymore at the Omni Institute of Black Joy Research. Found it right here at Florida State University. And in 2021, when working on my dissertation, which is called Black Joy in Green Spaces, a nature-inspired and darkened visual narrative inquiry, I also had the opportunity to be a pen and ink fellow for FSU Libraries. Thank you. I'll take that. I received that. In addition to that, same semester, I was a research mentor for Europe. Anybody familiar with Europe? If you're not familiar with Europe, you need to look into this organization because it stands for Undergraduate Research Opportunity Program. I think that's what the P is. So I worked with 4 young Black women. I believe they were like maybe 18 and 19, so somewhere around sophomore range, sophomore, junior. And we worked together to develop the digital humanities project called Blacktivate Joy. I did not know where this was going to lead us, but it has not just stayed in Tallahassee, Florida, but now it has also traveled to San Juan, Puerto Rico, to share the research that we did as a team as part of the library. This is citizen science. This is open access. And a lot of times, and let me go back to the past, because I said I'm going to do past, present, and future. With my Master's of Public Health, and I didn't know about the term open scholar or open science, citizen science. I wasn't familiar with that language while working on my master's. This is relatively new for me. But what I did know was I did not want to publish my research. I did not want to put it in an academic journal that would not be accessible to the majority of the people that I was trying to reach. So what I decided to do was put it on the stage, and this was in 2020, to create a stage production called Chocolate Sunshine. And this is not today's topic, but it's kind of that grounding information of the past. That by putting it on the stage, I'm air quoting because COVID hit in 2020 and we didn't have a stage. It had to be virtual. But that gave us the ability to give the research away in a way that blended science and art. Some things you just cannot plan. I didn't know that, what was it, Blaine Butler, was that her name? I did not know that she was going to say that the word scientist or open science can kind of cause a divide between those of us in hard sciences, or not those of us, but those of y'all in hard sciences, and the scientists in arts and humanities. There's a major divide there. But by bringing in this arts-based element with the conversation of public health, when I try to put this on the stage, we were able to reach 3,000 people through Facebook. Use social media for your work. That's, and somebody else said it in their presentation, that it's on the, I just spaced it right now, but social media was one of the ways to share your research, and that's how we were able to do that. I'm going to eventually get to this slide, but I want to now go into present, because I gave you a little bit of the past, talked about the public health background, talked about the idea of fun, talked about the idea of bringing students on board for this publication that we're working on for digital humanities. Where we are right now is to expand the research and go into green spaces to learn more about nature's influence on the emotional, social, physical, and spiritual well-being of Black people. And one of the best ways to do that is to bring in these young minds, because I love grounding. That's why I had to get into this conversation. Thank you for grounding over there with me. But what they are bringing to the table is something that my almost 50-year-old mind never would have necessarily thought of. And that is, how can we use social media to expand the message? How can we build this infrastructure that we started last year and expand that? So if you are, later on you'll see it at the end of the slide, but the website is blackdebatejoy.create.fsu.edu. And in this space, the students are able to communicate their work through that website. It's not just me saying, all right, this is my dissertation, I'm gonna plant it here. But what they discover from their literature reviews, what they discover from their story exchanges with other people, this is all gonna be placed on this digital humanities site. From there, this is now into the future. We want to work with FSU, and I'm putting the word into the universe of the ancestors can move forward in this space. We want to build a journal that is not just a scholarly journal, but also a creative artistic journal, because when you think about journals right now, is it all scholar? Is it all creative? There's no, at least for me, I've not discovered a blending of the two. Has anybody else found that in their work with journals? Yes?
I mean, the most you might get is like they have a competition to see who can get the cover picture. You might have some creativity to it, but that's basically it.
Okay, all right. And then you, thank you. And you had your hand up. Has anybody seen that?
I'm not actually focusing on that part. I'm diverted into IT and art, which I'll connect with you on Sri Lanka.
Okay, all right, sounds good. But that is like the future of where we're going, of trying to create this academic and creative journal that extends this research to the public. That way they don't have to go to a space that is isolated, like a traditional academic journal. They can see their work through fiction. They can see their work through dance that we record through video presentations. They can hear through podcast, all in this academic journal. So that is the future of where we're going with that work. We have a conversation scheduled next week with the library to see if we can make that happen. So I'm going to put my geeky hat on for a little bit and go into the 5MT competition. I am proud to announce that I won second place at this competition. That was last week. Thank you. Thank you. Received. And it was nice to place, because when you sit back, and this is me not liking to be back there, when you present this type of work in like really hard science spaces, and then to also win, it helps to validate the work that you're doing. And when students see that this work is positioned up against hard sciences, they're like, if she can do it, I can do it too. So what I'm going to share with you is the second place victory, and it is interactive, so get ready. All right. This is so hard just to stand still and, okay. So we will, this is why I have students in this space, because I don't do the whole technology PowerPoint thing. That's what I do. So if I try to click it, we're going to attempt this. Still on? Nope. Or was it this? Now it's on? Okay. Wish me luck, because trying to do this at the competition did not go so well. So we're going to start off with a question. How many of you like to do puzzles? Okay. Now let me run that back. Let me pretend red light, green light. Red light, green light. How many of you like to do puzzles? Okay. Let's try that again. Red light, green light. How many of you like to do puzzles? Whew, that took a while. Thank you. And generally, what is the first step when you create a puzzle? Okay, you visualize, because you know I was really about to do red light, green light again. What is the first step when you do a puzzle? Thank you. Are there any pieces in particular that you look for? You said it. Thank you. Corner? See, this is why you are a part of this conversation. Yes, you find the four corners. So the four corners to frame this morning's conversation include who, what, where, and why. Who? Black people. What? Black joy. Where? Green spaces, also referred to as nature. And why? To explore nature's influence on the physical, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being of Black people. But secondly, and more importantly, I want to really pause it right here, to provide a counter-narrative to the typical deficit lens that is generally applied to research regarding the Black experience. That's why I laid the foundation of those negative, or I call them sad stats, 42%, 80%, 60%, 30%. We need a counter-narrative. And we need to be able to share this counter-narrative in a very big and open way. That's why this Open Science Conference is so important to the work that we are doing and are really about to explode into. Now, I'm giving the answer away right here, but after you find the four corners, and I can give it away because I heard you say it, you said, find all the edges. Now, some people are like, well, what is Black Joy Scholarship? What does that look like? What type of theory? What type of methodology? Pretty soon, I'm going to talk to you about the theory. I'm not doing too bad with this little clicker thing. I like this. The methodology and the method, the research design, and a little bit, that's supposed to say findings. I don't know what that is, but finding S. We're going to find S at the end of this session. So I want to also pause on this slide that the Kujima theory of collective self-motivation informs the work that we do, and it also informs what has been happening in this discussion. Kujima comes from 3 Kwanzaa principles, and those principles are rooted in womanism as well as enhanced by these principles here of Kujichagulia, which means self-determination. All of you had an option this morning. You could have decided to go to your class, go to your job, stay home. It's Friday, it's beautiful. You could have had an early vacation, but you were determined to be here to learn more and to share your knowledge. So that is Kujichagulia. Kumba is creativity. How many times do you get to play red light, green light as an adult? Hardly, exactly. And that's what I want to really bring to this space of whatever you are working on, get creative in that space. And if you need some help, I'm here for you. We can sound off of one another to talk about some ideas to bring in Kumba with your work, which ties into Ujima, collective work and responsibility. We have to work together. That's why open science is so important, because we share it with the masses to remove the barrier to access. My work was about looking at the barriers to physical activity. The Endarkened Visual Narrative Inquiry, I made up this part because I added visual, but narrative inquiry is a research form using stories. Now, Drs. McClish Boyd and Dr. B created Endarkened Narrative Inquiry just in 2020. Now, this is all about storytelling, but the word endarkened is what really adds significance to our work. Endarkened was a term that was coined by Dr. Cynthia Dillard as a way to provide cultural construction and reclamation from the word enlighten. What does enlighten mean? Anybody?
Enlightening, personally, what I feel is when you are in peace and you can visualize it, you can actually feel yourself and feel the energy.
Through enlightenment, you're at peace. It comes through yourself, and people won't be able to see this on the screen, but this right here was a visual conversation of being able to share from within going out. But the word that they use in there is light. So why does that have to connote the way that we spread and share forth this wisdom? So through the word endarken, through cultural construction, we can research the Black and brown experience through a positive Black lens to provide illumination. So that's where that term endarken came from. Then I put all of it together because as an arts-based researcher, I love visuals. I love photos, I love videos, and this is what you see on the website. I don't know what is going on with, we are walking G today. We were going to finding S, now we're going to walk in G. So these are the methods that I use. Did you just do this method? You did, and you did it with fun. Photography. I couldn't make this up if I tried. Is she doing this method? Could not make this up if I tried. Are they doing this method? I didn't plan this. I didn't plan any of this. But through photo elicitation interviewing, we can go back and look at your photos and generate questions from just the photos. You took pictures of her doing this. Are those your pronouns? I'm sorry. She, her? What are your pronouns? Pronouns? She, okay. So when you took her photo in the video of us all the way walking around for red light, green light, someone is going to ask, what was that all about? I thought you were going to a conference. So then that becomes a way to interview people just by looking at your video. When we go back and replay this, we can then ask ourselves and figure out, what can we do to expand this conversation? Or what can we change next time? So this is where photo elicitation interview comes from. I'm not going to stay too long on design and findings because that's not the purpose of today's conference. But just quickly, it was an intergenerational study. We had 4 participants. I was included in that. The ages ranges between 24 and 58. They were invited to take as many photos in nature of things that brought them joy. That process is actually called kama mutu. I didn't make it up. It's just in the research, in the literature. And then they could only give me 5 photos to talk about. One person took as few as 24. One person took as many as 98. But for the interview, they can only look at 5 photos. Here were my research questions. For the sake of time, because I do want to give you room for questions. This is where I will focus and get ready to close out this piece. That how does Black joy show up for Black women who routinely commune with Mother Earth? Radical authenticity. I stand firmly in that space simply because this is me most days. If I can walk in the grass barefoot, I will do that. If I could be at home on the back porch or in the front gardening, I will do this. And what I found out is that a lot of other Black women, not just for grounding, but they get to show up as their authentic selves. In the work that we do for Omni Institute of Black Joy Research, we show up with research questions that are important to our authentic selves. And we have a collective self-ideology. I gave you red light, green lights, but everybody had a chance to win. We just experienced what collective self looks like. Expanded compassion. I couldn't make this up if I tried. You saw me when we came in, and then we had a conversation, and before we ended our conversation, you said, I just want to get a hug. So I will gladly offer free hugs. I'm a professional hugger. I will offer free hugs at the end of this conversation. And then what we do is a restorative practice. All of this shows up in the work that we do. All of this shows up in the research that we gather and we share. And all of this is given away for free, easily and accessible through the website that was created through Pen and Ink for their Digital Humanities Project. Now, this section is complete, but we are all students of something, right? So it's not up here. I'll leave that right there, but I'm gonna give you a pop quiz. Pop quiz. You ready for this? Stretch it out. If I were to ask who, what would you say? What was the answer? Black people. If I were to say what, you would say Black joy. If I were to say where, you would say green spaces, also referred to as nature. Yes, yes. And not to put you on the spot, so I'll give you the answer for why. And the most important answer, I do this work, we do this work to provide a counter narrative to the typical deficit lens that is generally applied to research regarding the Black experience. We do that proudly. We bring in womanism through Kujima, and we share this through the website blackdebatejoy.create.fsu.edu, a digital humanities project that started in 2022 and is really expanding in 23-24, that if the universe agrees, we will also have a journal coming out in 24-25 that blends the scholarship and the art in one space. My name is Dr. Chris Omni. Thank you for your time. Opening up for questions. Thank you. Any questions? Yes, yes, oh, comments. Yes, love.
My name is Baljeet, and many of them already know that my background is from visual arts. I'm bridging into information technology, and I'm working in Direct at the moment as a GA. How I connect today, though this is very important symposium for me, for open science, but I'm a big advocate for STEAM.
Yes, yes.
Nothing without STEAM, and how I connect the way you told. I'm a big believer in seed, because if there's no seed for education, for human being, for nature, for universe, no existence. No color.
And you know what? I'm going to pass you the mic because I think they need a.
Oh, thank you. And other thing to connect with you guys is, even though being information, art cannot be taken away from anyone. Creativity cannot be taken away from anyone. Doesn't matter which field we are. Last year or early this year, there was I presented Leaps and Bounds Unraveling the Greatest Mysteries of the Universe. And my topic was Seed and Universe Through an Eyes of an Artist, a visual impact. So I think today seems like almost end of the session, but I think one more speaker after that. But this is conclusion for me. If I am in position to conclude, this is it. I think this symposium brought everything together for me as a student and as a learner, because I will never stop learning, and I will never leave where I'm going towards. Doesn't matter technology, where it takes us. But if we are forgetting our feet on ground and the seed and taking weed off the ground, we will go nowhere. Thank you. I appreciate everyone who put together the effort to create this symposium, but special thank you to you. I'm going to connect with you. Yes, thank you. And
Yes. Thank you so much.
and it's a brown hug.
Yes, yes, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, love.
So I don't want to, I guess, explain your project to you or how the open science aspect comes in, but it kind of sounds like it evolved naturally along with the project because it matched with what you wanted to do already. This kind of bottom-up perspective is a nice contrast to what I normally see. I work at the Mag Lab, do a lot of biochemistry, physics, that kind of research over there. And it often feels like the whole open science thing is almost imposed top-down in a very kind of unnatural and uncomfortable way for a lot of people. But to see a project like this where it's kind of organic and naturally evolving alongside is refreshing.
Thank you. Spot on that this has been so organic, but the way I like to use it, the language is divinely orchestrated. That the ancestors have already planted this seed, and it was time for me to sprout and walk in this space. So thank you for recognizing that in the work. Questions, comments? Yes, love.
So thanks so much for your presentation. I thought it was, I'm sure we all really enjoyed it and learned a lot. I wondered if you could speak a little bit more about the next phase of like the evolution of your project. You mentioned, wanting to start a journal that would sort of blend between like the scholarly and the creative, fields and sensibilities and that kind of thing. I wonder, yeah, if you could speak to like why you want to move in that direction after having created, like a really stellar digital humanities project.
Thank you so very much. I love dreaming type questions. So in your question, I hear, how does this dream evolve from this organic space? And why do we want to have this academic / creative journal? Because getting a PhD from FSU, it puts you in a different category altogether, right? And people are looking to see, and this just happened in Puerto Rico. People said, well, where can I read your research? Where is it published? One of the presenters talked about the amount of time that it takes to go through the review process, to put the work out there, then have 3 reviewers, then go back and get your edits. And the one, and I'm trying to think of, I think it was through qualitative research through SAGE, that they had a call for proposals, and the deadline is December 31st. They specifically talked about counter narratives, and Black joy was one of them. I'm like, what journal is really asking for my work after I just graduated? Then I looked closely. Baby, it was $6,000 to submit. And you're talking about organic and natural. All of this has been happening like within the last 3 to 4 months. So when I saw that it was $6,000 to submit to this journal, I'm like, who does that and why? Is this really a thing? And I did not know that you had to pay to have your work published. Who has $6,000 just to give away to a certain population of people who are probably already privileged enough to receive the work? And I'm going to take it back to church today. Not today, Satan. I actually reached out to FSU libraries and filled out a form to get funding, and then somebody responded and said, well, not unless you're already approved, we can't really consider your application. But when you are approved, come back and let us know, because this sounds like a worthy project to support. I've been sitting with that. Do I really want FSU to spend $6,000 on my behalf? There's the answer right there. There's the answer. Do I really want to spend $6,000? So the answer is no. And just because you can does not mean you should. So this is why it is essential to have this type of journal that provides open access, specifically around subject matters regarding Black experiences, so that when you submit, you don't have to pay. That your work goes out to the masses. And on Ujima, collective work and responsibility, we fully acknowledge that this work is not going to be possible just through Black people, that it will take people that acknowledge the importance of spreading a counter narrative to make this happen. We can't do that at $6,000 for a submission. So by creating this journal, we are creating a platform. This website anybody can go to, but you're not submitting your work to our website. A journal allows you to submit your work through our journal that then gets disseminated. And the peer review process, that's all of us. That's everybody reading the stories and receiving the art of what we produce to communicate Black joy. So it's a natural evolution. Thank you for even bringing that up. It's a natural and organic evolution of this website, because then the community of Black people around the world can share what they already know and what they are researching around the subject of Black joy. Thank you. Okay, all right. You had your hand up, but I don't even know what my time is, so I'll give it. Okay. Well, I'm finished, but thank you. Here's my contact.
Yeah, so we have a little bit of time. Our next presentation is at 12.
It's my pleasure to introduce our last speaker of the day. Dr. Soma Sundaram, aka Soma, has been the director of the IMB X-ray crystallography core facility for the past 30 plus years, joining FSU in 1993. He is a structural biologist helping people solve the 3D atomic structures of biological macromolecules like proteins using single crystal X-ray diffraction technique. He is an FSU Distinguished University Scholar, FSU Faculty Senator, and a recipient of the Prudential Productivity Award from the state of Florida. He is a board member of the Executive Committee and the President-elect of the Association of Biomolecular Resources Facilities, an international organization of shared facilities. He has been involved with the Tamil, Indian, and Asian communities of Tallahassee for more than 2 decades and has served in several leadership roles on 3 cultural 501c3 nonprofit organizations. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the organizers for giving me an opportunity to speak in the Open Sciences Conference. This is my first time here. I know we all are tired and have been here for 2 days, and we all want to go and have a lunch. And I was thinking, being a last talk, as they say, you save the best for the last. Unfortunately, Dr. Omni leapfrogged, and I don't know whether I can even say that I'm the best one than the last. I mean, she took my punchline away. Anyway, let me try, and then we heard from a lot of people, scientists, everybody else, and I'm more of the other side of the equation, because you all developed a lot of techniques and technologies, but we want to use it, and here I'm here as a asking for your request or asking for help. I'm going to say a little bit, this is my outline of my talk. I'm going to say what shared resources facilities are, give you some examples, why do we need them, and what is the role of the open science and shared facilities, and the challenges we are facing, and how we are adapting, right? I mean, we heard a lot about open science, but from the technology and the scientist and data scientist part of it, but we will be the ones, we would like to use it, and we want your help. Basically, it's the other way around, right? The other side of the equation. Shared facilities are home to, David is here. I mean, basically, dedicated equipment with high-end scientific equipments available with the skilled personnel to solve the scientific problems, right? And then usually there are 1 or 2 per institution, because they are very expensive to establish and have to hire professional people to maintain. They are hard to find. And however, there are many shared resources facilities per institutions. One way to think of it, this will be like a centralized resource for both equipment and expertise, and usually you find several of them in the RO an institution like FSU. And I'm going to give you some example. There are 2 types of centralized resources. One is called centralized, and the other one is decentralized. I'm giving you some example here. A centralized resource facility is the difference is mostly the way in which they are managed rather than the services they provide. For example, I gave a MagLab an example. You go to MagLab, there are several shared resources facilities available, housed in one place, and there is a kind of top-down management of them, right? And there are other universities I've given, and equipment are there, and the expertise is there too. The second type is, this is the example of it. For example, Arizona State University has it. Let's say you are a scientist working in biological sciences. You would go there and then select the biological sciences resources facility, and you're presented with all these things which they provide for. Let us say you're trying to study genomics, and then you would click on the genomics facility, and then that gives you more detailed information about what they do, what kind of equipment they have, and what kind of resources they have, especially in the human resources, and then what kind of things they have. That is what typically you see. And then in the distributed shared facilities, which FSU is one of it, has department type facilities, right? FSU chemistry department is one example. Harvard's molecular, I just gave some examples. It doesn't mean they are the only ones. And where the facilities are managed by the departments, and they are the staff in there, and they report to their chair or the department head, right? And I work in one such facility like that. For example, here I'm giving some examples of distributed facilities you can find in FSU. Biological Sciences has one, and you can see all the services they provide are very targeted toward what a biological scientist would need, rather than a material science or something like that. This is another one. With this is where the facility I work, and where all the instruments and equipment are shown here, right? And the other one is you'll find what instruments are there, how much they cost, and how do you operate. All the information is provided here. And the other important part of it is that is not only we give you experiments, equipment, we also have people who can help you. This is the part of the shared resource where we help a scientist like a PI or a graduate student or a postdoctoral person or even a staff member who comes to want to use the facility. We are housed there. We are basically permanent staff. That is the only job. Like you librarians take care of, a science librarian takes care of science part of it, and the art librarian helps the people. Like that, we are the experts in that area, and we are available 24, we are basically available for people to help, and we get either involved in solving the problems or just give them the advice how to go about their scientific work. And why do we need these shared resources facility? As I said, RO, an institution like FSU does very advanced level of research, and it involves a sophisticated equipment in terms of the scientific equipment and data analysis and the computers and everything. And they are very expensive, therefore not every lab can have one. Therefore, for efficiency of providing the services in a reasonable cost, RO, an institution like FSU have this kind of facility located in some places so that everybody can go and work. The added benefit to that is that it becomes a nexus for collaboration and networking. People come to us because there's probably only one ion cyclotron resonance magnet the whole of the world, but not only that, in the FSU. Therefore, if anybody is interested in working in that area, they have to go to David's lab. Therefore, a lot of people come, and then they become place for collaboration, talking to each other, networking. Therefore, we are kind of one-way magnet for collaboration. Pardon the fun. That's why institutions need one. And for example, what I'm showing you is here what is called a cryo-electron transmission microscope. It is housed in biology department. When it was established in 2010, it costed $5 million. And at that time, that was the only transmission electron microscope in the whole of Southeast. And if I remember correctly, this was the 4th electron microscope of this type made by this company at that time we installed. When we received that, it was a big positive added advantage for FSU. It attracted actually 4 faculty members to biological department so that they could start the work. Right? And it is put on a special place, and it has got all kinds of things, right? And not only that, they have related equipment surrounding this shared facility, right? If you're doing a transmission electron microscope, you also might be working at it's like you're sending a light through and capture it, or reflect, capture it. That kind of related equipments are all surrounding this facility. It's just not one microscope, but something. That is the advantage of having a shared resource facility like this. Okay, and then you have experts, like as I said, the experts are there all the time. They are able to help you out, and any questions you have, they may collaborate with you, or they may just help you solve the problem. They may not be really scientific collaborators, just maybe advisors to you. This is from the MagLab's website. Okay, what is our role in science? Because we heard a lot of scientists here, and there's people who are publishing. What is our role? We provide them with, as I said, the unique equipment and the expertise and advice to move your work forward. Many students come to us, and we are not the only part of their research work. They may be doing something, and they need to talk to somebody, and then they progress with their research work and come to me, and they do certain part of the work, and they come to other work. That way, many individual component labs help people advance the work. Obviously, not every PI and every student will be proficient with the work they need to finish, but they needed to get the work done to progress. That is where we come and help them, because that's the only job we do. And when they come to us, we typically end up training them on their area and help them collect the data, analyze the work, and interpret the results so that they can take it to the next step of their research, whatever it might be. That's where we come. And then, as I said, we are also a place for networking and collaboration. And then because we are specializing on, generally people do not need to worry about, keep updated with their instruments, hardware, software, whatever it is, we take care of it. We talk to our peers in our own area to find out what is new, what needs to be done, we take care of. That part of the burden is removed from the PIs and the students. For example, FSU has one of the full body fMRI. Therefore, that fMRI, which is in the College of Medicine, is a nexus for not only people in College of Medicine, nutrition, psychology, MagLab, everybody uses. And not everybody who uses may be a proficient with the kind of information coming out of the instrument. That is where the scientists, like people like David, help them out. If you're coming from biological background and need some information in the medical background, he or somebody like us can fill that void. And the other places, for example, this is I'm going to photograph a workshop which we held. The people held at FSU. This is the electron microscope you saw. The electron microscope has become a center for electron microscope, cryo-electron microscope for macromolecular machines. And the students and PI from various parts of the country came to FSU, spent about a week learning how to collect data, how to process, and that becomes not only a workshop for learning and continued collaboration. Therefore, we are able to help the students. Okay, I spoke so much about this and where is the open science and where we come into the picture. I'm not here to promote my shared facility and in this facility, but there's a connection, okay? That the problem is we work with a lot of people, right? Lot of principal investigators, and we work with many departments, units, and colleges, sometimes with other SUS, that sometimes even the universities in other states. And we collect vast amount of data, and we store it in our facilities. Many of them have a proprietary data format. I mean, that is the only software and that the only machine can read and understand, right? The problem is, who owns the data, right? We have the data, but the PI owns the data. We want to be open, and we don't have a control over it except that we are housing the data, right? But we want to be open, we want to be fair, but that is the problem we are facing. That's where librarians and data scientists, other people, we want your help. How do you solve this problem, right? You talk to PIs, but we are missing in this equation because we are the people actually holding the PI's data, but you tell all the PI, make a data management plan or whatever it is, they tell, okay, you go and talk to Soma, he knows how to get the data for me. But I'm not aware of it, that's why we are here. I want you to be aware. There are 30 or 35 people like us in the main campus, forget about MagLab. We hold the data for lots of PIs, and you want to reach out to us so that we know how to deal with all this open science fair concept. We are not aware of that, right? And then, of course, we know in 2023, the NIH is coming with a mandate. Data management has to be planned, it has to be shared. We are not aware of it. Therefore, that's why I'm here to let us know that please inform us. Of course, this, as I said, the open science fair and then concept, right? Findable, accessible. Already we heard from the people from COS how it does work. And also, fair doesn't, everybody knows fair doesn't mean open, right? The biggest problem we are finding is, as David and others have pointed out before, the PIs who are collecting the data, if they are not properly indexed and tagged, they are not finding their own data. A student would come and tell me, hey, find me the data we collected in last year, February. I don't even know the name of the data set. Tell me where it is. Because the student is doing so many other work, then we have to go look, there's no easy way to index them. I'll show you some of the problems. This is some of the problems we are facing, and I just want that to be known to the others. Okay, what are the challenges? This is what I'm going to concentrate on mostly. We are basically asking for your help. And give you an example. As I said, I started this X-ray crystallography facility in 1993 October. At the time, the facility I'm working now was the only X-ray crystallography facility in the whole of southeastern United States. At the time, a student who was doing his PhD thesis used to collect one data, and he could publish his or her PhD thesis. It involved 24 data sets. The data collection lasted days, and it was collected locally, and he solved this. I still remember the shape of the crystal. You can see in the background on top of which the X-ray diffraction pattern I'm showing you. The dots are the X-ray data, and the kind of a rectangular thing is the crystal. The kit grew in 1996, and I remember that because it was a unique thing. The student published the PhD thesis on us, right? And then this is some of the metadata went into that time, right? Where he grew the crystal, how he collected, everything. Fast forward to 2023, a PhD student collects multiple structures to finish their PhD thesis. And the data, and then the data is collected in 3 hours, and it is collected in a national lab, like MagLab. We go to a X-ray lab in Brookhaven. We sit here and collect remotely, and one data set is about 7 gigabytes, and it is collected in minutes. Basically, what used to take about a week to collect is now collected in a minute. You'll see why this is becoming a problem for us in a second. This is one student's 1 day's part of the data set. Every line here is one sample. The student doesn't even know what sample it is he's going to collect, and we do not even know which is going to be a publishable data. But we have to tag everything, have to have a metadata for everything, somehow store, somehow index, somehow make it open to people. That is the problem, right? I do not know out of the 36 or 37 samples he gave to me, which would have diffract, which will diffract, which will be useful. There was somehow human has to come and tell, this is what you want to preserve, this is what you want to index. That's the problem we are facing, right? On top of it, the student would come almost the last step to me. Everywhere, there's a lot of information is lost. The metadata is not logged because they are in notebooks. They are in pieces of sheets of paper. They are in graphs. We do not know. We want to be open. We want to be fair. But there are a lot of obstacles to getting there, right? I don't have a way to ask any of them. I can't tear his notebook sheet and then add it as a digital page, right? That's a problem. Core facility, like people we are facing. And most of it, I said, it is all in a non-digital format. And this is the explosion you see in research being done, right? You can see with, somebody was talking about the AlphaFold. I think Sunny was talking about the number of protein structures being published is really taking off. How do we deal with this kind of a data? How do we keep it open? How do we keep it fair, right? That is the problem. And this is the reason for that. When I started using in 2000, the X-rays, amount of X-rays available, between that time to 2020, it has increased almost 10,000-fold, right? The light has become so bright. What used to take 1 week to collect data, 2-3 data sets, now in 1 day, 1 hour we collect. It's a very high throughput, very high efficiency. We have so much data, we don't know how to deal with that, right? That is the biggest part. We have become very efficient, like she was saying, that we have become so busy, so lot of information is there. How do you deal with that? That part we don't know yet. I'm sorry. Am I fine? Yeah. And then this is the other problem. We have the microscope, I said, Titan microscope. In one day, we are collecting 1 terabyte of data. There's no place to store them. Let them, you can even have a duplicate, right? There's no space to collect, no place to stay. And the duplication is near impossible because if the array doesn't work. The random array of independent tests doesn't work because there's nothing there to store. Imagine 1 week they have the way in which they deal with this, they have the, as I said, it's the last mile problem we are going to face. This is how they deal with. They send it to the archival system where they have 100 terabyte of data storage and 100 terabyte of archival space. Therefore, they can only collect for 2 or 3 weeks. This is one of the examples I'm giving. It's not exactly my example. One week they collect the data, and then somehow they have to store in a hard disk somewhere. That cannot be openly accessible to people because there's no way to keep that amount of data freely available to people, right? This is the problem we need to solve. I'm not saying I have a solution or I'm not asking you a solution. We have to be aware of this problem, right? And this is somewhat similar to that. In my area, there's a place where you can store this data and then access them. For example, what we have been doing this, for the concept of faith, what core facility all we have decided to do is developed a scientific equipment database, which is a website built by the help of a provost, and then we have it at FSU. The advantage is this is the one place where you can, in the part of the fair part of the findable part, you can go and type anything you want, whether you want to find it by you're looking for an instrument like a microscope or a spectrometer, anything like that, you can fill that in, it'll find the answers for you. It's a live website. And then if you're looking for a facility in biology or you're looking for an X-ray facility, you can find this. This is what we are trying to solve some of the problems. And for example, you can look for anything you want. It took about 6 to 7 years for us to fill this. This is what the state of Florida gave the Davis Productivity Award because we were able to build this with the help of funding from the provost office, collaboration between FSU ITS, facility, and people like Dave and everybody gave information, and we built this. This is one way we are trying to address the problem. At least you can locate where the equipment are. For example, you can see how the various parts of it will get filled. Let's say you want to tell all the scientific equipment in biology, you just click the biology department and it fills for you. Or you're looking for a particular facility, what equipment instruments have, you would take the middle column and click the answer. Or if you're looking for something, a particular equipment, we can do that. This is what the facilities have been trying to do. And this is available in the my.fsu.edu, either for a student or for a faculty. And it gives all the information about, this is where the accessibility part comes. Right? You're able to find it, and it tells you what instrument it is, where it is located, how to contact, who to contact, and how it looks like. It took about 7 years for us to put together. We have about 565 equipment available. It is open to anybody, and it is being maintained by the facilities website. And we are trying to, provost and the president, when John Trasher was there, wanting this to be propagated to all 12 SUS because they all have this. And we wanted, this is the steps we are taking to solve some of the problems. Still, a lot of people do not know it exists, even though it's a one-stop search for 540 equipment. The total cost of it is like $300 million, something like that. And as I said, this is what we are trying to build. And then this is the other example I want to give. I think I and Devin were talking about, even though Orchid is popular, nobody is used, 40% of the people use it, looks like. You can build, how do you reach to the end users, right? Even though we know it is built into fees, right? You can see, I don't know, maybe it's, you can see the import. A lot of people are not using it, right? You guys, data science and librarians are doing great job of building, great job of having the schemes. How do you get the last mile, right? None of us know this. I'm involved in this project because I heard of this project, but this information is coming. Somehow we have to reach more people. And this is the next barrage is coming. This is called RRIDs, Research Resource Identifiers. I and David and we're in a meeting where they are trying not only to do DOI, they are trying to identify individual equipments, individual facilities. That is coming to us. None of us are ready. And then this is the lady, Dr. Anita Bandrowski is involved in this RRID. This is courtesy, both the slides are courtesy of her. My facility has a RRID. Therefore, if you type those 5 digits, it identifies where I am. It makes my life easier. If somebody is writing a journal or an article, if they put the RRID, instead of writing my facility, do they say FSU, IMB, X-ray crystallography facility, X-ray crystallography facility? All those goes away if you use the RRID, right? That's what we are trying to promote. But there are only few of them in FSU. People recognize this problem, and we have to somehow reach to them. I'm talking to Renee so that he is going to come and talk to us about this. Many of you librarians know what this is. And therefore, what are the suggestions we have? Most of the facilities should adopt this kind of open science RRIDs, keep open to people, and we should broadcast. And institutions like libraries and institutions should promote this so that more people are aware of it and recognize. And organizations like, I'm involved in the ABRF, they should educate how this could be useful for people and incentivize. And I and Devin were talking about, everybody knows if you update an ORCID, it helps your annual evaluation, but people are still not doing it, right? Ask them, while I was building the website I was showing to you, somebody say, I wanted information from your facility so that no more people use it. He said, I don't want to put my instrument in the facility, in the database. I asked him why. We don't have human resources. I already know who my users are. If more users come, I don't have a bandwidth to help all of them, right? There was some time being open means you're going to be overwhelmed by the amount of requests you're going to get. Not everybody's prepared for that because we do not have sufficient human resources from our side. The other problem I have is, in my core facility terms, there are users and there are users, right? The people I know will take less of my resource and get the same amount of return on my investment, right? The regular users. And there are users, I mean, as a librarian or many of you know, there are people who come, you spend 5 hours explaining to them, they are still not in the first floor, right? You spend a lot of time, and therefore, many of them do not want to be open about it, not because they don't want everybody to find out, but there are some people, there are power users, and there are other users, right? This is what we're finding out. These are the obstacles somehow we have to overcome. As I said, this is regarding RRID. I just told the slide from my other presentation. We had to convince the people And first, people like me, I had to get convinced this is good for me, for everybody. And then if the users take it, and then maybe people like you guys can help, we can expand the usage and keep it more open. And that's my summary of my presentation. I hope I have shared some of the difficulties and the problems we face in our space, and hopefully we'll find some solution together. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. This presentation was wonderful. I think we can just discuss all the things that you touched for days in here, and we might not be able to find solutions. So one thing I want to say is I'm an educational researcher, and in our team, when we started to implement open science practices, I can give you this example of we were publishing our lab reports, our psychometric reports, in a month. In a month, I was able to produce every month another report. Our first publication took more than a year when we decided to, okay, you know what, we will do this in this way. And recently, I've been more involved with Open Science Framework, and most of the engineers or medical researchers are reaching out to us and saying we don't have enough space to store our data. So we don't know how we are going to share. So I can tell this is a very common problem. And through your presentation, actually, for the first time, I was able to observe how serious it is. Because, users are reaching out to us and we are reading their email and I'm like, well, this person has 50 gigabytes of space already and it's not enough. It's very surprising to me because I never came across this issue. And one thing I can tell what they are working on, a couple of other repositories that I know as well, is that they are utilizing Drive accounts or Box accounts or GitHub so that you can have actually more space through these platforms. Because most of the agencies I know, including my team, we are already paying to restore our data from some of these different websites. So there are some ways to integrate those different websites to gain more space. Although you have tremendous amount of data, this is one thing I can see. However, I also understand, for example, you showed us the data that your students are sharing. Not copy and paste will work because I will not be able to understand what variables that student has and public will not be able to understand. One thing I get to learn through my open science journey last 2 years, I think the beauty of this journey is to accept challenges and just keep working more and more. And I feel I will, or any of the research teams will be able to say we did this because it's an ongoing process and it will be.
Yeah, I agree with you. Just remember the old maxim: if something could be done, you do it good in the first place. That may be the important thing. Like you said, it's very difficult to even index and tell what is important. Repeatedly, what we want to emphasize, if you're doing something, do rigorously and reproducibly, because otherwise, in the vast amount of data, it's impossible even for the student to find where the data is. Therefore, you want to do well. And with this, think about how many people have gone back to their own research and looked at the data. Because we are in a, like she was saying, we are in a fast-paced world. We need to keep running to stay in the same place. The science becomes so progressive. There is a push for efficiency. but for not effectiveness, right? We are pushing, well, okay, we have to collect more data, more information, more and more and more, because anything which was done 1 week can be done in 1 day. We want to do it. The problem is, in 1 day means there are 7 days of what data you have to deal with now, or there are 7 days of things you have to understand. After some time, you just, okay, forget it. It's above my head and leave. That's a problem, right? In terms of the, efficiency, we are leaving the effectiveness. That's the unfortunate thing. We have to be cognizant of the fact, like you're multitasking and talking to people and running into people, right? That is the problem. How do we deal with that? We have to recognize, like you said, take your time off, ground yourself, and try to do one good science. Maybe you publish 1 paper, but it's very good, and not publish 10 papers which nobody cares about it. Right? So
Yeah.
I'm not a PI. I don't have to write grants if I'm saying that, but maybe a PI would have other problems.
Yeah, I think you have a great point. I just want to add this really quick because, you know, when we talk about like, yeah, share your data, it's like amazing, right? Like other researchers will be able to reproduce whatever you have, but also that's a very amazing point you have. Like there is also not value if there is a data that I cannot understand how I'm going to use, or like this like big amount of like files, or like, you know. So we should be really careful about like what we are putting out world, because if other researchers will not be able to make meaningful connections.
You cannot make meaning, what how others are going to make meaningful, right?
Yes.
And then I think the other meeting where David were there, the people are saying, make almost all data fair, compliant at least, if not open, because majority of the time, the people who are actually looking for the data, somebody presented in the meeting, 90% of the time, the person who generated data is what is looking for. We forget about the open. The open is more using for the person, for me, right? If I'm organized, if I kept it properly, it will be useful for me first, let alone for Devin or Camille or something like that.
Any other questions? Are we ready for closing remarks? Thank you so much, Dr. Soma.